How are you doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Los Angeles is doing really good during this whole time. And frankly, I'm hearing about what's going on in Detroit, Michigan. It's a little rough.
Mhm. It is. It is. But hey, you know, unfortunately, what do you expect?
Yeah, yeah, you ain't lying.
Yep. But good to see you, girl. It's good to see you.
It's good to be seen. Nowadays, that's my goal. To survive.
Exactly. And Clint, you said we could be anywhere. No, we really can't. Okay.
That's real. That's real.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for this really critical conversation. You guys could be doing a multitude of things, but it's so important for me to listen tonight. I know as we combat this COVID-19 virus that we're working through together, it's more important than ever that we're united. So I want to just thank you all for joining us. Those who are joining us on their phone and those who are joining us via Zoom. This is our new normal. We had scheduled a previous event, but we had to make some alterations to it because of this virus. And I know myself representing 1,500 workers throughout the state of Michigan. I know what is going on. I have members in Detroit, Wayne, and Macomb. And our thoughts and prayers are with every single one of our educators, every single one of our individuals who are working on the front lines as we together combat this virus. The purpose of us meeting here tonight is really to hear your thoughts, your concerns, and your goals as Black women. I'm not a Black woman, but I want to make sure as your representative, I listen. That's the most important thing that I can do. We do have some prepared questions for our very dynamic panel. And if you're joining us on your telephone, please feel free. Let those comments come in and we will put you in a queue to join us for comments, questions, and concerns that you might have. But for those who are joining us via Zoom, use that chat feature right at the bottom of the page and be sure to put your comments, questions, and concerns in there. We may not get to them all tonight, but my team and myself, we are committed to making sure that every single comment, question, and concern is addressed. And I am looking forward to our discussion tonight. We have a very, very unique panel and dynamic. They are leaders within our community, but we have a very, very special guest who is joining us tonight. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But she's a powerful and an inspirational figure in our community. We have welcomed her into our home for years, and you may recognize her as from her role in the CW's Black Lightning. You also may remember her as Cousin Pam from The Cosby Show. And you may also remember her as Maxine Shaw on the original, and let me be clear, this is the original Friends, which was Living Single.
There you go.
So yes, I am so glad that our special guest, our celebrity guest, is joining us tonight. It's an exciting time. You guys could be doing a multitude of things, but thank you so much for joining together. But in addition to those roles, Miss Erica Alexander is a writer, a producer. She's an activist and an advocate for our community and for fair representation. She's on the board of Vote, Run, Lead. And that is a organization whose goal and mission is to encourage women and inspire them to run for public office. So I don't want to take too much of our time. We have a very full agenda, but this is an action-packed night. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is our celebrity guest joining us tonight,
Thank you.
Miss Erica Alexander. Thank
Thank
you so much
you.
for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you. Hi.
Yes,
It's Dr.
yes.
Pamela
Hi.
Pugh in here. Let me tell you something. You are with the chilly crew. Let me tell you something. Michigan has the most powerful women I've ever seen. Maybe because
Amen.
you guys are in such a unique state that has its own sort of local political weather. So I have been
Amen.
lucky enough to have met some of these women, especially Dr. Pamela Pugh, in a different time, and they have inspired me. And any reason I'm in this at all is because I've met powerful figures and women like this inside of real history. So Clint, I'm very happy. Thank you for the invitation to be
Thank
with
you.
you on tonight's call. I'm pleased to join the women of Saginaw and say hello to you all. And I'm prayerfully and thankful for you. And I know you're going through a lot. You're in the belly of the beast in more ways than one. We're depending on you to set not only the tone of what this election is and how this goes, but also to show us how it's done.
Mhm.
And as you have always done that, I hope that you're taking care of yourselves personally, because this is a difficult time. And as we know, Black women can take on a lot more and lose themselves inside of it. And this year has been tough already. So we want to make sure that you're okay. We can't allow ourselves to be paralyzed right now, and we have to remain focused. And that's what I'm trying to do, to remain focused and not get confused or frustrated by all the things that want to sap your energy. And so we're working to engage the community, to be counted and take the 2020 census. Definitely, you know that the work doesn't stop here. We encourage everybody to continue to engage the community, and also to get closer as it gets closer to your August 4th primary and into November. Um, we'll make sure that in the physical form of the election, we can't have any obstacles deter us. We saw what happened the other day in Wisconsin. They didn't
Mhm.
care. They obviously um, were not thinking about our democracy and what it means when they tried to not only suppress the vote, but force them to go voting even against their own health measures. So no matter what, we have to keep our families and our friends and our communities engaged, and encourage all of you to the last vote is cast.
Yes.
There's a lot at stake. I don't need to tell y'all there's a lot at stake. There's the dysfunction and the systematic racism and inequities that are in our country. We're facing an affront on our people from our health care point of view. We're also facing maternal health crises, and also we're also always trying to fight for more justice in our criminal justice system.
Mhm.
But as women, we deserve a candidate that can prioritize our agenda. Black women save America
Mhm.
every day. And we don't need to say that if this election goes the way it needs to, it's because Black women
Mhm.
brought us here to this moment. We have been trying against gravity to pull this nation back up. We are the moral majority. I always say that. And I'm proud to be a Black woman. I'm proud to be Black, always have been. I'm proud to be an American, but I'm more proud to be an African American in this time. And so, since we've served as the backbone of this economy and the conscience of America, we still don't get any free votes.
Mhm.
And no one should get ours for free. We're going to have to hold people accountable, every candidate. We're going to have to prioritize Black women's agendas. We're going to have to make them understand that we're a diverse demographic and it ain't no one size fits all. And our issues are complex. And so we're going to need the answers to be thorough. They can't just, serve what they said last time. And we are going to this in this cycle win. I know we will if we do what we need to do.
Yeah.
And our candidates will serve us well if they know how to listen and elevate our desires. So I thank you for your time tonight, and I thank you. If nothing else, we just want to vote. And Clint Bryant, thank you so much for standing in wanting to take it on your shoulders, all of this. And certainly, I'm sure people have great questions for you tonight. And I'm looking forward to your ascent. And, you know, boom, shakalaka, brother.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So thank you so much, Erica Alexander, for joining us tonight, for giving us your words of encouragement and inspiration, and really laying out what we need to do. If we've done nothing else, we have got to make sure that we fill out our 2020 census, and we have got to make sure that we get out and vote. As you referenced, we've seen what happened um, in Wisconsin, where folks were literally walking over broken glass to make sure that they exercised their right to vote and make sure that their voice was heard. It's more important than ever in the political climate that we're dealing with. And amidst this global health pandemic, that our folks get out there and vote and make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So it's more important than ever. So I just want to say thank you so much to Erica for taking time and spending this moment with us as we realize what is going on in our country and our communities and really in across the globe. I mean, this is an international health pandemic that we're combating. So just thank you so much for spending this time with us tonight. We have a very dynamic group of local leaders tonight. We have Ms. Vicki Hill. She has been soothing the souls of Saginaw for over 25 years. You know her as the Gospel Lady. She's going to be joining us for some questions. We do have some, like I said earlier, we do have some questions that are already filtering in. And please remember to, if you are on the phone, hit *9 to join us in the queue. And if you're in Zoom, put your comments right below at the bottom of your screen. Also joining us tonight is my good friend, Ms. Jeanette Barnett. She is the Vice President for Saginaw Public Schools SEIU unit. She's been advocating for our students and working families across the state of Michigan. We have pounded the pavement on thousands of doors together. So thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Jeanette Barnett. And rounding out our panel tonight is Dr. Pamela Pugh. I know that I could talk about Dr. Pugh. I'm so used to calling her Miss Pam, but I'm going to give her full credit tonight. Thank you, Dr. Pugh, for joining us. You have really been in some critical roles in our community, from being the Chief Public Health Advisor for the city of Flint, Michigan, your work here with the Saginaw County Health Department, but somehow you made time to also be the Vice President of our State Board of Education. So it means so much to me tonight, in addition to have Ms. Erica Alexander on the line, that we have our three panelists of local advocates who are on the front lines. And you know, we look at this coronavirus as a call to action, but you all of you have been in the field and working to impose equity in a variety of different formats. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. We do have some questions. The first one is going to be for Miss Vicki and Miss Pamela Pugh, and then we will follow with the second question to Miss Jeanette Barnett. And just remember that tonight is a time for me to listen to the Black women, the strong Black women in our community. We've assembled on this call tonight. So the first question I have relates to health. So in effort to protect our physical health during the COVID-19 pandemic, people feel more isolated than ever. So I'm going to ask Dr. Pugh and Ms. Vicki Hill, what are some things that you would like to see when it comes to elevating the conversation about mental and physical health concerns in our community? We'll start with Ms. Vicki Hill, and then I'll ask if Dr. Pam Pugh would join us on that question. Ms. Vicki.
Just let me unmute. There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for allowing me to join this meeting. Hello to everybody that's on the panel and that are listening in. That's a great question. And you know, I thought about this earlier. With this pandemic that's going on, when you listen to about the coronavirus all day, every day, it starts to play a big part in your mental state. In fact, you know, I often tell people it's great that we're getting all the information because we need that information, but you cannot listen to this every day, all day long, because when I say it plays a part in your mental state, it starts to make people panic. You know, what am I doing that I shouldn't be doing? Should I not be doing this? Should I be doing that? Should I go here? Should I not go there? We do need to know the information, but again, in fact, I have one of my employees, it has affected her to the point where she was not able to work for a while because she was afraid, I'm going to get this and I'm going to die and there's nothing we can do about it. So when I sat down and I talked with her, I said, we need the information. We need to know exactly what to do, what not to do, how to go about our daily lives. As they say, our new normal is now. We have to be able to maneuver the situation, but yet stay safe. But in saying all of that, please don't listen all day long, every single day to the coronavirus pandemic, because it will make you start to panic. Every little thing that comes about, you think, I've got it. I start to cough a little bit. I've got it. If I get it, when we go to the hospital, is there going to be equipment there to save us? So it does play a big part in your mental state.
Absolutely. Dr. Pugh, could you get in on this question as well?
Absolutely. You know, and being a public health professional and then seeing as an African American and watching how health inequities have persisted within our communities, I have to say that I've been one of those people who have really pushed this message of stay at home, look at the numbers, look at the data, because people were just not getting the information in a timely way that we needed them, and hearing it in a way that was pushing them to action. So the thought never was to push people to was to panic, but for people to plan. Here we are in Passover, and my pastor, Hurley Coleman, preached yesterday or talked about Passover. So it's an opportunity for us to think about trials and but how we've overcome those trials. And I think it's an opportunity for us to think about the miracles that are to come. We have faith, but we are also using wisdom. We want people to see the data. We want people to know that it is hurting our communities the worst. And we cannot avoid that because at first the data was not showing that. So we have to put that information out, but finding that balance. So one of the first things that we started to do, I teamed up with former Mayor Karen Weaver, who is a clinical psychologist. And when I would put out information, she was sitting there with me. Or usually I will have a faith-based person that's sitting there with me. We've had other folks, social epidemiologists, to talk about mindfulness type techniques, but really just making sure people are present in the moment. I try not to think about the future. I can't think about tomorrow. All I can do is wake up, try to have a routine each day. I have a space where I can come to an office. And then when I get ready to leave here, I try to go into my living room and maybe do something and not, look at something that's not related to this, but really trying to help people to set up a routine. Just stay in the moment, try not to think too far ahead. Make sure that you do things that protect your health so you know that you've protected your space, yourself, so you don't, every time you have a cough, oh, that's sinuses because I wasn't around anybody. So don't put yourself, if you can do that. Some people have to get out and work. So really in this time of Passover, as we're going to Easter. This is Holy Week for those of us who are Christians. I really push, faith. This is a time for us to exercise and get closer to Christ, for me, because that is that's what I practice. I mean, meditation, some other people may do meditation, but then call for help if you need help. First of all, call a friend. I had a friend yesterday who said, hey, we need to do another FaceTime, because we're not social distancing. I'm starting to say physically distancing, because here we are together, we're being social. Find ways to be social, find ways to, the phones now, you can look at people, you can see people, find different things on Facebook. So there are activities on Facebook, but get your mind doing some other things, but make sure you're planning, make sure you're staying safe, make sure you're staying healthy. And so those are some things that I would say to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pugh and Ms. Vicki Hill. I'm going to start our next question. I know we are getting more questions that are coming in on our chat. Remember, if you have a question that you want to answer via your phone, if you have called in, hit *9, you'll be placed in the queue. But if you're joining us via Zoom, go ahead and you look at the bottom of your screen and use the comment section below. But I'm going to ask this next question to our panel, and we're going to start with Miss Jeanette Barnett. We'll go to Miss Pam Pugh and then Miss Vicki Hill. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a Black woman in Saginaw? And what are some of the most pressing issues that we are facing and that you are facing as Black women? I'm going to ask Miss Jeanette if she could join us for this question.
Okay, I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I want to thank you for inviting me on this panel.
Absolutely.
From Ms. Hill, Ms. Alexander, Ms. Pugh. Thank you for being here. What it means for me to be a Black woman in this community, these are very troubled times right now. I'm thankful for the experience that I've had knocking on doors, being an organizer, being a leader here through my union. And that's been a blessing for me because it put me in touch with a lot of people in this community that needed, questions answered. And if I had information for them, I would share with them. And that's the thing that I love most. I love to help. And I'm in a unique position where I can, as a leader to my union, give out a lot of information to our members and other community people that I run into just in everyday, being in the store, at the gas station. My exposure, knocking on doors has, I've got a little connection out there with the community, and I love that. It is a struggle being a Black woman and getting recognition for things that you do. That's always been an issue, I think, for Black women. I was asked by the Democratic headquarters to run for a position here in Saginaw, and which was a wonderful honor. And I'm considering it. I think that we need more Black women to step it up. I think that the unknown keeps us grounded. We're afraid to step out of that comfort zone. And I remember my father saying to me many, many years ago, when I was absolutely doing nothing at all, and asked me this question: what do you know about where you live? What do you know that's going on in your own community? And that got me started right there. And I thank him for that. My dad's gone now, but I thank him. That got me thinking. That got me motivated. That got me, start asking and questioning myself. What do you know? What do you need to do to find out what's going on in your community? How can you be active? But I have to say that, just that the unknown and where to start, how to, go about, being involved in your community and doing community service type things is a challenge for Black women, I think, all over. So, we need to support each other. And I support all my Black sisters and my Black brothers. Yeah, and you don't have to be a Black sister. I support you if you're a female and you're stepping out your comfort zone. So
Thank you, Miss Jeanette. Dr. Pugh, your family has a decades of advocacy work. So I wanted to ask you that question as well. What does it mean to be a Black woman in Saginaw? And what are some of those most pressing issues for Black women in our community?
So to me, being a Black woman, African American woman means resilience. I grew up with my mother who did not finish she went to high school. She did not go to college because she chose to raise her children. And the older I got, the more that I realized the strength that little 5'3" woman had. So strength and resilience, the things that our women have go through and struggle through. And as my sister here just said, getting it from all sides sometimes because we have to be at all places. We have to go to the office and perform there, and then we're also expected to do what we have to do in the home because that's how we were raised. And it doesn't matter if we have children or we don't have children. We are the caretakers of the community. When I grew up, my mother, there are so many people that will tell you that she cared for their children and have touched so many children. So we are responsible for our community. So we do the office, we do home, and we do community. So when I think of African American women, Black women, I think of strength, I think of resilience, I think of family, I think of community. And so there's so much purpose with that. As far as the things that I think are pressing for our community, of course, health, the health of the African American female, all of that wears on us. They say Black doesn't crack, but we know that whether we're looking at infant mortality, whether we're looking at cancer, heart statistics, and now, we have these statistics that show that that it does, that extra burden that we carry does weigh on our health. We know that the stress gets under our skin. And so we have to do better there. And that is a concern of mine in figuring out how we do that. And we have to be the ones who are outspoken. There are a lot of times that I'm showing up at tables and I wish that I could, I love to smile, but sometimes
Okay.
we really have to put ourselves, be comfortable being uncomfortable a lot. Our education, looking at the education, especially here in the state of Michigan as it relates to our children, and just calling for better, pushing for better as it relates there. But as my sister said, supporting one another and helping each other to run for office, to step up and be that voice and to be the voice for our communities, for our families, and then making sure that we're a part of any economic opportunities. And here in Saginaw, that is a huge concern for me because we have gotten so complacent, I'll say, for lack of a better word, with looking at the statistics that show that our Black African American men, in particular, but our African American communities do not have the employment, the economic opportunities that they need. And we have people who have been in that state for some time and begin to check out of society. So really pushing to figure out what are the economic opportunities that our young, bright and bright African Americans, African American males, that we can create for them, and helping them to become entrepreneurs and using all the skills that they have to do that.
All right, Miss Vicki Hill. Thank you, Dr. Pugh. That was great. Let me ask Miss Vicki Hill that same question. What does it mean to be a Black woman in Saginaw? And what are some of those most pressing issues for you and the other Black women of our community. We do have a large number. So after this question, we're going to get to some of the audience questions. We know that we have some folks on queue because they've hit *9. And also there's some that we're going to be getting to in our comment section below. So I just wanted to wrap up our panel discussion with the prepared questions about what it is like to be a Black woman in Saginaw, and what are those most pressing issues? Ms. Vicki Hill?
Thank you, Clint. Well, actually, the panelists, Dr. Pugh and Jeanette, they hit all the nails on the head. Actually, they really did. Being a Black woman here in Saginaw, or pretty much in the community anywhere, of course, resilience. We Black women have a purpose. We have a purpose being involved in our community, doing community work, which I love to do. I'm in the community a lot, a lot. And I hear a lot of things from a lot of different people, whether they're women, whether they're men, so there is a purpose for all Black women. And I think just like what was said by Jeanette, being there for each other, it means a lot to be able to be a supportive person of another Black woman. And sometimes we find that that's not always the case. So a lot of times we need to really step up to the plate and be that supportive person, be able to support my sister and whatever my sister happens to do that is in the positive field. Even so, when I'm in the community, whether it's with women that are my age or older, or even when I go out to the juvenile facility and mentor the youth, I hear a lot of different things, and just being a part of our community and putting ourselves out there. I love community work. I love to talk with people. I love to give, I would say, my opinion on a lot of different things. And, it's okay. I thought about this morning as Pam was talking about her mom. I thought about this morning. I thought about mine earlier this morning. And I thought about when I was thinking about even the pandemic that we're going through. And I thought about how we're trying to get through it the best way that we can, staying safe, making sure that we're staying safe. And I thought about how we grew up, or how I grew up as a kid. My mom may not have had that college degree. She didn't get to go to college. She had to raise her family. Well, we as Black women, we're doing the same thing. Who has families? We are raising our children up in the best way that we can, in the best light. We are getting them educated. We are directing and leading them in the way that they should go, so that their life has a purpose. So it's a great thing to be a Black woman in America, even though we have our struggles. We have our struggles just like the men do. But for a Black woman, sometimes our voice is not always heard. So we want to make sure that our voice is being heard as well. So that is very important. And of course, yes, our health is very important to us. We need to always make sure that we are caring for ourselves, and we are also caring for our neighbors. So all of that stuff is very, very important.
Thank you, Ms. Vicki Hill. And I'll tell you what, never one time, from whether it was my grandma, Mother Harris, over on 11th and Perkins, or if it was my aunties or cousins, they never one time complained about the barriers that Black women had to face. They just got the job done.
Done, right.
Yes, yes. So we do have some questions. I'm going to get to them right now. Ms. Sherelle Dottery, I see you. But I have a question for Dr. Pugh. And the question is, how can we get women's healthcare taken more seriously? This pandemic has put lots of surgeries and important tests on hold when dealing with women's health. What can we do to address that? Because we know that there's constant pain, and some of our women in the community are being made to play the waiting game in wake of this coronavirus and this pandemic that we're facing. So what are some of the things that we may be able to do?
So let me first say, and I'll give you some numbers, Clint, because I want to make sure we get the mental health numbers out. And then we do want to make sure that people are calling their doctors and making sure that people are checking in through telemedicine and through their doctors. We don't want people to skip care. We don't want pregnant moms to not do their prenatal care. So let me say that. But yes, it is a concern of mine. And I was on a call previously, and I'm on calls all day. They all run together. but we have to start talking about the inequities that we see now in this pandemic, that now the whole world sees, that we've been calling out, because we can't wait until the pandemic is over to start talking about these things. Because if not, people will use trial drugs within our community, or people will, or we will get left out of the recovery. But definitely we need to be caring to these populations and the communities that we're talking about, African American women and their families right now. But at the same time, we need to be planning post pandemic. How are we going to begin to put our people first? These folks who already are facing so many issues, not just of their own, but of their children, their parents that they're taking care of, husbands and spouses. So we are having these conversations right now. We have to unfortunately use this unfortunate situation to holler to the rooftop and have these uncomfortable conversations that we will not continue to be last. We will not continue to be last. Our voices will not continue to be unheard. That our underlying issues, the drivers of those issues, have to be heard, and we have to be listened to. And at this point right now, and we can't wait until it's over. We have to have these hard conversations now. And thank you for that question. And I hope that you will join us in pushing for this, and make sure that you get to your doctor and or some sort of telemedicine that's out there, to make sure that you're not skipping any critical conversations with the medical community or your physician.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Pugh. I know that we do have a caller that has hit *9, and they're in the queue. So I'm going to ask if I could have my team patch our caller in with her question.
Hello, I am so sorry. I have my grandbaby here. My name is Crystal Bandy, and the question I wanted to ask is, what kind of programs we have to offer for our young parents, as far as for parenting skills? We're so needed. Low self-esteem, self-worth, and all those kind of things. We need that. Are there any kind of programs that provided, or places where they can go and get help?
Yes.
Not as far as financial help. I'm talking about so they can educate their children and teach their children how to be respectful and morals and things like that.
Yes, absolutely, Ms. Crystal. And thank you for joining us via phone. There are some resources that are available from community mental health to women of colors to many, many, many organizations within our community. And I want to make sure, I can't address those all right now, but I'll make sure that we post and that we share some of the resources that are available. I know my grandmother, I love to hear your grandbaby on the line. That was beautiful. That lets us know about that there's a future for our community, and that's what we are fighting for. We're fighting for our kids to make sure that they have a fighting chance and they have the resources that are available in our community. I know we have a large amount of nonprofit groups, and I'm going to make sure that we connect you with as many resources as possible as we work through not only this pandemic, but also any unforeseen issues that we might have toward the future. I just want to piggyback on what Dr. Pugh was talking about the issues that have already pre-existed in our community. I mean, we just, as people of color, we need to look at the facts. And what I understand and what I recognize is that Black women are 3 times more likely to face death. as it relates to maternal health. We're going to be having a conversation about that next week, because next week is Black Maternal Health Week. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth next week. So I hope you all will join us. But Ms. Carthan has a question. Ms. Dottery has a question, and I'm going to ask Ms. Jeanette Barnett, what are some of the things, I'm going to pull it up right now, how can the churches be used to inform their congregants and the community about the truths, the do's and the don'ts as it relates to combating this coronavirus, COVID-19? So I'm going to ask Ms. Jeanette Barnett, what are some of the things that our religious community and interfaith folks can do to let our community know what is possible?
Making sure that you have, all the facts straight. There are a lot of information out there going around. I think that the churches are very powerful instruments in every community, and making sure that they have the facts correct. And whenever possible, checking on their members, on getting that information out there to their members any way that they can, whether it be a flyer, a phone call, but just making sure the information is correct. Because what I'm hearing, and I've been on Facebook a couple of times, just, I pop in and out of Facebook. I'm not a real big Facebook fan, but people are still not clear on, what the symptoms are and what to do and what not to do. So churches, should just make sure the information is correct, and making sure that their members and anyone else that they, come in contact with have the correct information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. I've been looking, I've been attending church for most of my life, and it's different. It's very different to be at home, but to tune in via Facebook and live stream and other things. But I know that that's how we have to connect. We have to use social media and technology to our advantage to make sure that the word is getting out. And I know that our colleague, she does a great job of informing her congregants over at Greater Williams Temple. And we have some questions. Also, Dr. Pugh, let me get you to jump in on that question as well. I know you frequently attend. I seen you a couple of weeks ago at World Outreach Campus, and it was great to see you. But what ideas do you have for our interfaith community to be able to connect with their congregants and really the community at large? Because we know our churches play a very vital role in the spiritual wellness of our community.
So, I think first we do have to and we're just talking about in general.
Yes.
So, first we have to recognize that our churches, our pastors, we have to be prayerful for them, because they're under whatever happens to us, the people, happens to them multiple times, because they're dealing with the people. But I think having a pastor such as Hurley Coleman, who is quite active in the community, who really has a good pulse on the community, I think that's critical. But really having a pulse on the community. I know watching my father and how he operated with the faith community, and really hoping to see the faith community get back there. That's at that time where we had the Reverend Roosevelt Austin and the Pastor Coleman Senior, and some of the others. I can go on and on. But really getting out in the community, getting beyond the four walls, and hearing what's going on in the community, getting a pulse for what are some of the resources that are available, as well as the gaps, and then determining how they can fill those gaps. But then also looking at what are some of the things that are going on across the country. What are some other things that are going on in other communities, or other faith-based communities, and what are some things that they can implement there. But they definitely play a critical role. I think that we have to help to undergird our faith-based institutions, because right now they're under tremendous attack, just as we the people are.
Thank you for that, Dr. Pugh. That was a phenomenal answer. Thank you to our entire panel for joining us tonight. There are some questions that have been directed toward me. That's what my team just let me know. So I'm going to try to answer those. Hopefully we can tap back into the panel, but I know for the sake of time, there's some questions that folks want to hear answered directly from me. But I want to say thank you again so much to Ms. Vicki Hill, Ms. Jeanette Barnett, and Dr. Pamela Pugh. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The first question that our caller asks, and if you could please let us know your first name so we can respond. We're gonna have a very interactive remainder of the call. So there we go. Okay, let me rephrase, let me hit that question one more time. How do you plan to lead at a local level on issues that we can control? And I think thank you for that question, but I think it's extremely vital that we work together. Now more than ever, it's important that we unite. Oftentimes we look at our greatest economic driver, which is our river, and that has divided our community. That's not something that I believe in. I think it's something that we need to continue to address. And I think that for those who have followed my career on the Saginaw City Council and being just a good citizen, one of the things that I've been able to do is bring folks together, whether it was with the beautification efforts on our Saginaw River. I mean, we've seen 500 people come together, and I want to let you know there is nothing. We may have to cancel that for this year because of this pandemic, but there is nothing more beautiful than seeing hundreds, 500 people have attended those events in our city. So that's how I plan to lead. I plan to use that experience as a labor negotiator and also as a councilman to bring our folks together. But we do have another question from a caller. We're going to go to a caller here in just a second, but there was another question that was asked, and it says, what is your response to "it's not your turn"? I love that question. I love that question because, as a substitute teacher and as a school bus driver, I've had the opportunity to see where our students live and see the environments um, that they have to live in. And when you see those things, when you as a council member, I seen cuts to public safety. I fought against those cuts and other things that have happened during my time as a labor negotiator, seeing right to work and enforced, which is another form of Jim Crow on our people. When folks say that it may not be, I haven't heard it too much, but when somebody tells me that it's not my turn, I say that the issues that are facing our community and Black women, we cannot wait. We cannot wait for action. We're not seeing action in Lansing to address our community. The economics of trickle down, they just don't trickle down to us. Those resources don't come to our community. So when I get the question, it's wait your turn or it's not your turn, when you see some of the things that I've seen, when you see the things that our callers have seen, we can't wait. The time for action is now. So thank you so much for your question. And we're going to get to another question from a caller. I'm going to ask my team if they can queue them up, please. Oh. Do we still have them on the line? All right. Well, they might have hung up. They might have hung up. But Candace asked another question. What are your plans to engage and sustain connection with the young millennial population? I think that's a great question, Candace. Thank you for tuning in and joining us tonight. I am a millennial myself, so I understand that we want to make sure that we have a vibrant and a bright community. And we have to engage in how our citizens are engaged. I mean, even tonight, we're using technology, and we have to be able to harness that to make sure that not only our millennials, but the generation, our Gen Zs, they have an opportunity to build a future for our kids. That's why I was so glad to hear Ms. Bandy's grandbaby on the line, because that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our kids, and we want to make sure that we leave this community better than when we got it, because our grandparents, our grandmas, our grandpas, they worked in labor. Labor is the core of our community, especially Black labor. We have built this community, and we need to make sure that corporate greed cannot get in the way of that. We've seen mass layoffs, we've seen jobs leave our community, and that's why I have an economic plan to help engage those millennials. We know there are many who are facing layoffs on top of combating this coronavirus with next year. Next year laid off about 200 folks within the most recent weeks. So we know that the time for action is now, and that is how I plan to engage our millennial community. We do have another question from Miss Karen. And it says, it feels like the movement has turned away from East and West, but rather Saginaw County versus this Great Lakes Bay concept. A Saginaw County commissioner just mentioned this when voting for the animal shelter from West Saginaw to University Center, which is beyond SVSU. I think that's a great question, Ms. Karen. And thank you for asking that. The animal shelter, it is sad to see that our county commissioners, a majority of them, had decided to build this animal shelter and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer resources just to purchase property. What I understand is that Saginaw County Land Bank has hundreds and thousands of parcels which could be used. And when I was a council member, we had proposed 3 locations to the county to build this animal shelter. The cost is astronomical. It's $12.3 million. That's the cost of Delta College, to have Delta College in downtown. I worked on that bill when I worked for Representative Guerra in Lansing. And to think that we're spending that amount of money on an animal shelter, there's other things that could be used with that money, and we could be much wiser stewards. While I respect our county commissioners being elected in their own right, I'm an advocate for the city of Saginaw, and I understand what those jobs would mean in construction, and to have those opportunities available for folks in our community. So we did submit a plan. It was rejected, but my advocacy will always be for the heart of the city of Saginaw. Let's see, if we could, just a quick reminder, if you are on the line, if you want to get on the line and in the queue, please press *9 so we can get to your questions. So let's see if we have somebody who is queued up right now. I know we had a dropped call a minute ago, but let's see if we have somebody who is in the queue. Hit *9 to be placed in that queue. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Let me ask another question to our panel. As a former substitute teacher, children of this district are always on my mind. And thank you to any teachers whom we might have on our call tonight. But I would like to discuss what are some unforeseen challenges that our students are going to face when they return to school. I'm going to ask Dr. Pugh if she would join us for this question. And also, we're going to ask Dr. Pugh. Ms. Jeanette, I do have another question for you, but there was one that was directed at me, so I'll get right to you. But Dr. Pugh, what are our children going to be facing when they return back to school, whenever that is?
So I think that we're just in such an unknown territory that I can't answer that question. I wouldn't even try to answer that question. I don't know if anyone would be. There are great minds that are coming together that are thinking through this. There actually on my page. If people go to my Facebook page, I've posted some of the materials that can also be found at Michigan Department of Education, which looks at the social and emotional well-being. And I'm hoping that our educators are able to be tooled over the summer and throughout the rest of the school year to think about the social emotional needs of our children, and speaking to educators who are friends of mine, and I will definitely be in tune to that. But really just hearing them and listening to them say that we really need to think about how we get back into our next school year when that happens, and really knowing that it just won't be the same going back. And but we will try to make sure that we have as much normalcy as possible for our children, but at the same time we need to recognize that this is something that none of us have ever been through before. And so we have to acknowledge it as such, give pause to it as such, and really take our time and make sure that we treat it and take actions in that way. But really helping our educators as well as our children and their parents to maneuver getting back into the process of going to school. And the good thing to know is that our educators as well as our children, they're ready to go back to school, but we know that it has to we have to make sure that we acknowledge that we're in a different space that no one has ever been before.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that, Dr. Pugh. That's a very complex question. And I know we have some plans in our policy agenda to address that so that our educators are equipped when any unforeseen circumstance may arise. We know that we're combating so many issues in our community, being folks of color, with school closures and other things like that. Um, we have to make sure that our teachers are equipped to educate our students and our kids of this community for the future that they deserve, and to be able to look beyond 3 foot tall grass and imagine a future of possibility. So thank you for that, Dr. Pugh. We do have one question. I'm going to ask Ms. Barnett to quickly answer. I know for sake of time, we're going to try to get these responses for 30 seconds. I'm going to ask Ms. Jeanette and then Dr. Pugh, and then I'll wrap up with a question, with an answer about minority-owned businesses. This is a phenomenal question. And it says, oftentimes, Black-owned businesses struggle to survive in our community. Do you have, this one is directed at me. Sorry, Ms. Jeanette. I do have another question for you. But it says, oftentimes, Black-owned businesses struggle to survive in our community. Do you have any specific plans to help alleviate this issue? Absolutely, I do. And I would encourage you to join me at clintbryant.com. We're going to answer all these questions on there. But when it comes to small business and diversity, one thing in my policy platform is to recognize the fact that Michigan does not have a state-sponsored grant program for minority-owned businesses. That's something that has got to happen. So what I would propose is a $50,000 grant program for 100 minority and Black-owned business startups in the state of Michigan. That's only $5 million. That is less than 0.5% of what the governor's recommended allocation for the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. I'm talking less than 0.5% for 100 minority-owned business startups. That $50,000 grant program, that would be huge for the state of Michigan. We know that other states are doing something similar to that. So Michigan should not be left behind. We have to advocate. We have to recognize the contributions of minority-owned businesses in this state. So that's what I would do specifically for minority-owned businesses. And I think that would be a great pilot program, and we can expand even more on that. And just remember that it's less than 0.5%. I'm going to ask our callers that are joining us, please continue to press *9 And then I wanted to ask another quick question. I know we have somebody, I think there's someone queued up. So if we could patch them in, that would be great.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. My name is Keisha, and I work for a corporate setting. And my question is directed to anyone on the panel. Are there any resources that are available in the city of Saginaw for millennials who work in the corporate sector, but they are having, they're facing inequity on the job? So for me, I have an advanced degree, but when it comes to really being entrusted with responsibilities or being able to get to that next leadership role, it's just very different when you're the minority of the organization. So I'm trying to see if there's any mentoring opportunities that are available in the city of Saginaw for women who can come together and kind of discuss some of the inequities that they face working in the corporate arena and how you are able to rise above that and some of the challenges that you face being the minority on the job.
Dr. Pugh, let me ask if you would answer that question first, Ms. Jeanette Barnett, if you want to answer that. But I know that you have walked in many rooms that have been filled with white men who have had control of the structure. So if you could speak to that, what resources might be available?
You want me to go first, or Jeanette, do you want to go? So for me, to be honest with you, I don't know of any specific opportunities, and maybe we should create some. I worked in Flint up until November for 3 years, and I know that that was a huge push for millennials as well as women. And so we would have days in City Hall where we would have millennials that would come and have conversations and then be able to write down their thoughts, and then formed a opportunity for them to come together and really help them to put those plans together. So I am not familiar with that happening here in Saginaw. And I think in my opening statements, I talked about the economic opportunity for African Americans, African American males. And so I don't know, maybe I'm missing it, but I don't know that is present, but definitely that is a need. And I'm happy that the caller did bring that up, but it is what I perceive as a gap. And if she's asking the question too, then maybe it is a gap that maybe we need to come together and be thinking about how do we address that. There are some activities that are going on as far as how do we, and they're regional, and how do we make sure that we find funding and financing to make the economy more vibrant, and making the economy more vibrant for those communities that have been left out, meaning women, African American. And so those are conversations, and there are some activities that are pulling together, but to actually have a group that mentors one another, I don't know that that exists here in Saginaw.
Yes. I think that was a phenomenal question. I think it speaks to the lack of diversity with our local chamber. So we have to make sure that we're engaging everyone, and everyone is part of the conversation and has a seat at the table. And to that caller, if you could send us your information, because I would love to connect you with our Saginaw Economic Development Corporation. That's not exactly what we are looking for, but I think that's a phenomenal group for us to work together to have that conversation. I know we have one more question, and then we're going to wrap for tonight. Tonight we could talk for hours. We could be talking for hours because we're going to continue to break down barriers for Black women in Saginaw. But let me ask this one right here: how can we work towards a more cohesive community? This question will be for Miss Jeanette, and then I'm going to ask Miss Pam Pugh, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for tonight. We're going to have another one. We're just going to have another one of these stakeholder Black Women's Roundtable because I'm learning so much just from your questions, from Dr. Pugh, Miss Jeanette Barnett, and also Miss Vicki Hill. But let me ask this question to you, Miss Jeanette. How can we work toward a more cohesive community? It seems like there is a racial and a generational divide. So if you could speak to that for those who are listening in, I'll greatly appreciate it.
We definitely need to do more community things together. Right now, that's not what we can do. But I was just talking to a grandson of mine and talking to the younger generation. He's 17 years old, and this whole thing about East Side, South Side type of things that children don't know their history. The history of Saginaw, or their own personal history, where their forefathers came from and how they made it to to Michigan, and that struggle there. I think that education is a key. History they definitely need to know. We need to get back to, I think, when the time allows us to do so, to doing more community things. There once was a time that there were events that were going on in this city that families came out to participate in. I'm thinking that just right now we're in such a state right now that everyone's just trying to stay safe. That but this too will pass. I know that, and just getting back to the basics of community events and staging more of that and reaching out more to our community, forming new groups, that do that. The caller, for instance, had a question, and there's definitely a need, to address that question. That was a very powerful question that she asked, and one that needs to be addressed. So. Yeah, there are things there's work to do in this community, and what you're doing is awesome. I can see you being, taking on, a lot of these community events and being active. You're everywhere, familiar face that everyone knows, and I think that the community would welcome any ideas and suggestions that you have and ways of bringing this community closer together.
Ms. Jeanette, you're going to get me emotional. You weren't supposed to do that. But thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Dr. Pugh, same question to you. How can our community, how can we work together? How can we be more cohesive and bridge that racial and generational divide?
So, and I think that Jeanette answered that question so thoroughly. I don't know if there's anything else for me to add to that. Okay. I think we started off by talking about how we have to support one another. I think that we really have to start thinking about what is it that we want to see in our community. We're at a place right now where we have corporations that were producing cars that are now producing masks and face shields. So this is a time for shifting. So, really thinking about what we want to see. And it's a time where when the resources come, we have to really know that our community needs to be first in line to be able to take part in those resources. So I think really coming together, planning together, and really coming together, envisioning what we really want to see happen in our community. And one of the previous caller, when I was responding, a lot of some of the activities that I've been a part of now as a public health person, professional, is looking at how the economy, we're already looking at, and people are really understanding how the economy and health have to go hand in hand. So we're talking about that already. So now we see that even more. This pandemic shows us how those things are so critically tied. And so we're already starting some of those activities here in the area. And so we just need to make sure that we grasp a hold, and that when we get to these tables, Clint, whatever table we get to, we have to be there and be about our people's business.
Amen.
You're not going there to be somebody's friend.
That's
You're
right.
going there to be about your people's business, and to get it done. Whatever friends we have are the friends and family that we have, but really making sure that we have a plan, we're coming together, we have a vision, and that we're able to fight to see that the next thing for our community is inclusive of everyone, and being very vocal, and being very action oriented, and making sure that we're able to speak up for those people who have been left out, and those people who have been most impacted by economic downturns, or a crisis, or a health a pandemic such as this.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Pugh. I want to take this time to thank our very dynamic group of ladies who have joined us tonight. Thank you for the work that you do for our community. And I also want to say thank you, a huge thank you to Erica Alexander. We had the opportunity to connect with her earlier. She's a phenomenal force. Make sure you follow her on all your social media. I know there are many other things that you could have been doing, but I just want to say thank you to our callers. Thank you to everyone who is tuning in on Zoom. I've learned so much just from this call, and I hope that we get to do it again because this is powerful. Those questions and the answers from our panel, they were great. They were great, and we need to do this again, and I hope that we can. For everyone that was on the call tonight, please know that I hear you, and I want you to tune in as I continue my work to elevate each and every one of your issues and the issues that were in the chat. And for those who answered on the call tonight, I just want to encourage everyone on this call to connect with me on clintbryant.com. You can see more of our policy agenda. You can get a yard sign if you want. And you could also find some important events and updates that we're going to be putting out there. You can also connect with me by texting Clint to 22999. And also, I would like to take this time to invite you as we continue. Tonight, we touched on it a little bit, but we have a maternal health crisis in the state of Michigan as it relates to Black women. Next week is Black Maternal Health Week, so we're going to dive into some of the facts. I know there's a lot of information that we're being inundated with, but these are the facts that we're going to be talking about and the challenges as it relates to Black maternal health. So please join us next week on our Facebook Live. So yeah, I'm just so excited to have this conversation. Once again, thanks to our panelists. You can connect with me at Clint Bryant MI on all your social media platforms. I want to encourage every single listener under the sound of my voice tonight to please stay home, please stay safe and be well, and good night. Thank you all so much for joining me. And don't forget to tune in next week for our conversation for Black Maternal Health Week. Thank you all so much. Good night.